Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about, astrology and someone named Connie Culp. Some of you may have heard of her. She had died recently, and she became the first person to have a face transplant. I believe it was a partial one, but she was the first one nonetheless. And she died at the age of 57, and it was stated that she had lived the longest up until that point of anybody that ever had a face transplant. Now, she she's an Aries, Sun in Aries. I don't have her actual birth time, of course, so I had to improvise once again and do a solar sunrise chart for her. Her moon also in Aries. She was actually described as very pioneering, I believe brave as well. The Sun in Aries, of course, can have a lot of courage and fortitude and be fearless. It's interesting. There was an actor named Buddy Ebsen, a Sun in Aries, I believe, and he somebody asked him, well, how have you been able to live so long? And he said, because I'm fearless. And it seems like that's the typical Aries, basically their motto and theme. And perhaps uh, Connie Culp's her courage was able to keep her, maybe sustained her life longer than most, given that she had this facial reconstruction surgery. And I'm going to talk about some natal placements in her chart and some transits that might, at the time when she had this surgery, um, and see what could be tied into that as far as natally and through transits. Now, again, going back to the fact she had the sun and the moon in Aries. I mean, obviously Aries is very pioneering. They're first often in many things. When Peyton Manning's sun in Aries, he retired from the NFL. He was first in some categories. I mean, there's just something that with Aries, it seems to be some destiny toward being number one, being first. This is something that she didn't want to be first, and I'm sure because obviously when she had gotten shot by her husband, I mean, it left her face disfigured, which ultimately led to her having this reconstruction surgery, and of course, it lost some attractiveness, sadly, when she did have this surgery. Now, some things I've noticed, even though it's generational, she does have Uranus conjunct her Pluto in her natal chart, which could be an indicator of, in some cases, an unusual or some kind of innovative surgery. Pluto is connected with surgery. Uranus can be I mean, it's about originality and it's innovative. Being in Virgo, something that may have required a lot of meticulous attention to detail. She also has Mars conjunct her north node in her chart as well, at least a loose conjunction to it. So that could be some future that could be associated with something with the face. Mars can be associated with the face. She has Mars in Leo, something that could be something that was very dramatic, could have been extravagant, and also something that commanded a lot of attention, sadly, in this case. Now, another thing, what I'm seeing too, she also had. I mean, when you're looking at as far as her chart goes, now she also. I mean, it's really what I'm seeing. I mean, as well, you're talking about in the solar sunrise chart. She has Neptune very close proximity to the eighth house. So you're talking about a possible surgery where you're talking about Neptune is about dissolving and dissipation, and in some cases, perhaps this is like the resulted in removal. She had it. She also had. I mean, Neptune can be associated with, again, with dissolving, dissipation, disappearance, in this case the removal of something new as far as matter, as far as her face goes. I think the real telling thing when I'm looking at the chart for this day and the transits are in, this was like a 23-hour surgery. It was very tedious and time consuming. But one thing that really stands out to me is that at this time she had transit Chiron, at least a loose in Aquarius, at least a loose conjunction to her natal Saturn. She had a lot of skin removal, I believe her teeth as well. And you're talking about in the sign of Aquarius. Saturn can be associated with the teeth and the bones, and you're in the skin. And you're talking about transit Chiron being in close proximity to it. Chiron could be associated with physical wounds, in this case, incisions. And you're talking about, of course, when you're doing a surgical procedure, it can involve incisions and cuts. And in this case, something associated surgical procedure on the skin, the teeth. That was very innovative. It was very pioneering, which of course is Aquarius energy. She also had transit Neptune not far from her natal Saturn at this time, and Neptune can be about, again, dissolving and dissipation. And it's really, you're talking about really, in essence, the dissolving of one's skin, that removal of it, the teeth as well. And there's really, I mean, to me, that's really the thing, I mean, that stands out to me as far as the surgical procedure goes on that day. She also had, at this time, she had transit Saturn in the sixth house. And of course, you're talking about Saturn can be about difficulties, something that could be health. I mean, you're talking about something health related, especially being in the sign of Virgo at this time. And the thing about, looking at her chart as well, she has one of the rulers of the eighth house of surgery in the fifth house. So it's not surprising that she had the surgery that was going to get some kind of notoriety and recognition and acclaim, would actually play a role probably in her personal popularity, though it was something that's something that she probably didn't want. I mean, it's not that she didn't want personal popularity, but not in that manner. And another thing I noticed too at this time, that the transit south node in Leo was not far from her natal Mars at this time, and it wouldn't be considered a conjunction as far as the orbs that are used that are permitted by transit. But we don't know if something's even 5 or 6 degrees away from a planet, if that's not receiving a vibration or not. When you're talking about the south node in transit, it could be about what we're going away from. Transit south node not far from her Mars. While Mars is connected, Mars rules the face in astrology, so that could be an indicator of that removal of the face matter at that time, and something that was very dramatic, that could have been very extravagant, might have cost an exorbitant amount of money. You're talking about something like this that required a lot of extensive work, that was tedious and time consuming. That's obviously something that required a lot of and probably a lot of fortitude and courage as well, considering that this is in the zodiac sign. You're talking about this being in Leo at this time. So, and the thing about this too is that her the fact she has Jupiter in Pisces in her chart, and that tells me that, I mean, you're talking about it being in its dignity, and Jupiter in Pisces, as it can be lucky when they have hope, when they're idealistic, when they're inspirational. This person was obviously, I'm sure, an inspiration to many. She has Jupiter conjunct her Mercury as well, so she also had a lot of positive thinking, I believe, and very idealistic in her thinking as well. And the thing is, she was obviously an inspiration to many, I'm sure. And another thing, too, is that she also has Mercury conjunct the Sun, which a lot of people have. But remember that Mercury can be connected with eyesight, and there obviously had some there's some eye issues connected with being shot in the face, obviously. And Aries is the sign associated with gunfire. She has the Sun and the Moon in Aries. The Sun rules either the left or the right eye, depending on gender. The Moon also rules the left or the right eye, depending on gender. And Aries is connected with volatility. It's associated with gunfire as well. So, sadly, I mean, this was somebody that attained some kind of notoriety and recognition for sadly, for all the wrong reasons. But it was something that basically it was something that happened, and it's a situation where I'm sure she didn't want to have to go through and endure, but she obviously showed a lot of that Aries courage and valor and fortitude by being able to deal with the situation at hand. There's really not much more I wanted to really had to say about it, in addition to what I've already stated. I mean, she had transit Pluto was in lucky Sagittarius at that time, so that may have helped out, and making a loose, say, looks like from what I'm seeing, a very loose, you could say, sextile to Saturn in Aquarius, which shows that, you're talking about a lot of it was skin removal, and the skin operation was something that was going to be favorable for that, because Pluto, of course, can be associated with surgery. Pluto being in lucky Sagittarius, making that very loose sextile to her natal Saturn in Aquarius, and it looks to me like an actual, from what I'm seeing from a trine, a transit that transit Pluto in Sagittarius made a trine to her Venus, so natal Venus, so something that went by that was going to be very peaceful and smooth, and I'm sure it did. I mean, she got out of obviously the surgery was successful. Her face was certainly not the same. It was rather disfigured and really looked distorted a little bit, after she had the surgery, but it did go the way that she had, basically had planned, I'm sure. So anyway, that's pretty much what I wanted to get at as far as this, as far as Connie Culp goes, and her natal chart and the surgery that was associated with this at that time. So at the time the transits, and her transits at the time of that reconstruction surgery. So anyway, people, well, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.